So, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode at Puny.talks. Today, I'm joined by someone with truly inspiring background and powerful track record. Investor, entrepreneur, and founder of ATO Ventures, Jennifer Hopp. Thank you for coming, and I have the honor of calling her friend and mentor. So, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Here is a little bit of background for her, from launching her first business at 8 years old to investing in over 20 companies and building tools for founders worldwide. Jennifer is a walking blueprint for purpose-driven entrepreneurship. This episode is especially important for those who are dreaming about starting your own business, where you are reminded that it won't be easy. It's absolutely possible. Our guest proves that if you lead with purpose, you can validate your idea. Success is within your reach, and no matter how hard it gets, you can get there. So, thank you, Jennifer. Did you like that bio?
I thought it was excellent. Thank you.
So, first of all, let's start with 8 years old. I was kind of curious about that. So, how did that go? Tell me that story.
I was in grade school, third grade, and I just had this idea of making these little scratch tickets because it was a way to earn money. And I had seen some older kids doing some similar things, and I thought I could do that. So I just went home and took some pieces of paper and I tore them up.
Okay.
Wrote in a ballpoint pen over the top of it my name. People call me Jenny then. Please don't call me Jenny.
I'll keep Jen.
Jen is great for friends. Everyone else calls me Jennifer. But I wrote my name in a ballpoint pen, scrambled letters, and sometimes you had enough letters to spell Jenny and sometimes you didn't. And then I took a black crayon and colored over it, right? So this is like low cost startup.
Validating.
Right. So then I took them to school and I said, if you buy one of these tickets and you scratch off the crayon and you have enough letters underneath to spell Jenny, you got a prize, and the prize was candy.
Interesting.
But I didn't have any money. So I couldn't buy candy. So this was my first lesson. How do you start a business when you don't have any money? I used scrap paper, a ballpoint pen, and crayons. That's all I had. And then I just, on my word, promised that if they bought tickets and they won, I would bring them candy the next day. So I did pre-sales. As an 8-year-old, I thought this was a great idea. Now we make it too complicated, right? So I did pre-sales. I sold the tickets. A couple people won. I took the money from the ticket sales, went and bought the candy, and the next day brought them the candy, right? So I would sell in advance. And that's how I started my first business.
Interesting. So, what got into you? How did that go? I want to give people candy based on prizes. Is that did you see it as fun? Was it a game? How does that go in your brain?
I've always had kind of this mindset of trying to figure out how to accomplish something. And in this case, it was solely to earn money. And I figured the kids wanted candy. And that's about all I remember, is that I thought it would be fun. I wanted to earn some money, and I thought I'd try it.
Interesting. So you connected since very young. People want something, and if you know what they want, you can kind of offer them something of value so they can then pay you for that, right?
I don't know that I went through that much thought process, but that's what came naturally.
But that's what happens, right?
As an 8-year-old.
So as you grew older, did you always knew that you wanted to empower people, or was it more like you wanted to be an entrepreneur and then helping others came afterwards? How did that go?
So to be quite honest, it was more about survival when I was young. So my family, I grew up with my mom. Where are you from? Spokane, Washington is where I grew up.
Cool.
And so it was just my mom and my sister and I. And my mom, bless her, did the best she could, but she was a welfare mom with a lot of challenges, and so wasn't very involved. So this was actually a blessing because I also didn't have a lot of supervision and could do whatever I wanted.
So you can experiment. Not a lot of us can have that, because parents be like, "What are you doing? You're broke. You're not building businesses."
Yeah, right. So can you imagine some kids would have gone home and said, "Hey, Mom, can I create lottery tickets?" And they'd be like, "No." Can I walk to the store by myself at 8 years old and buy some candy? No, right? So I didn't have a lot of supervision, which actually gave me a lot of leeway to do whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
And it was fortunate that whatever I wanted happened to be positive things, and I didn't go down a negative path. I ended up finding my way. But I started doing business stuff, or things that we think of now as business, but as kids was just me trying to make ends meet out of necessity. So there would be times, for example, when there was a field trip or you needed to buy a uniform or something, and the teachers would always send home a form and then ask your parents to sign it and bring back the money. And it was always very stressful for me because I knew my mom wasn't going to have the money.
Of course.
And so I started learning very early on that I didn't need my mom to have money. I could make money. So I started just everything I could think of. I'd wash cars. I remember when I first started washing cars, and you have to remember, I'm much older than you are. The cars were traditionally very big, and I was very little. I remember I went to wash a car, and one woman brought a stool out for me because I couldn't reach the top edge of the car. So, but I would go and I would ask, can I wash your car? I had one job playing with kids, so I wasn't old enough to babysit legally, but I could occupy the children while the mom got whatever work she wanted done. So I would clean out garages, take care of kids. I would do anything. And then in the winter, of course, where I grew up in Spokane, there was snow. So I would shovel snow, something nobody wanted to do. So I would go shovel sidewalks and shovel driveways and just whatever I could. And I liked it. I didn't feel like I was being punished or it was a bad thing. I actually felt really good about myself by earning the money. And then I was able to help the family as well.
It's interesting. So I come from a background where my mom was a helicopter mom. Hi, Mom. So she was I had a different experience. So my mom knew every second of everything I did. And she always wanted to make sure I was in the right path, study, doing the right thing. And I never, so I think my backbone, unlike you, I was more of a builder. But then as I went to university, that's when I discovered the world of entrepreneurship or business, and that was my calling because I always thought someone was missing in my life, and I didn't know what it was. Until somebody put a name in the university, and up to university, I didn't know. So it's interesting that you had the experience, that you had the fortunate experience of discovering early, but not a lot of us have that experience. But it's interesting because the lack, I don't want to say lack of parentship, because
well, it really was. I pretty much grew up without parents.
But the point is that gave you a liberty of experimenting.
Exactly.
So I think that when people get to the point that they can experiment, the quicker they get to experiment, the quicker they can kind of find their way. And I think you had that early on. Not unlike me, that was a little bit later in life. So I know that I said you're founder of ATO Ventures, but before ATO, you had some things, right? You did businesses. You launched that. I remember it was SaaS. I think at some point, we don't have to talk about the business per se, but how was that experience before? How did you pass from being an entrepreneur then to investor? How did that go?
Well, there was a few steps in between. So when I went to university, it was the same thing where I knew I was going to have to pay my own way through school. And so I had jobs for a while, but then I wanted to transfer. I was at UC Berkeley. Okay. And I was working full time while also in school.
Everybody loves that university.
It's a great school. But then I had the opportunity to transfer to Oxford in the UK. And so suddenly I was in a situation where I couldn't work to pay my tuition. So what I decided to do was I took everything that I had, everything that I had saved from working. I had a small scholarship, the grants, loans, anything that I had scraped together to pay for school. I walked across the street, opened a Schwab account, and stuck it in there.
Interesting.
And then when I went to Oxford, I knew that I had a small pile of money that I needed to be a little bit larger in order to cover costs. I didn't have enough money to pay for my tuition when I accepted
so it's like, I'll find a way.
I'll figure it out. And so I decided to use the money and put it in the stock market. And so I would actually place trades. So on the weekends, I would study what happened during the week. And then Monday mornings, I would go and place trades.
Interesting.
And that's how I was able to pay for my tuition while I was at Oxford.
Huh. And how, from being a person that wants to produce money, well, VCs, that's the whole thing. You want to multiply money, but you do it in a different way, because the way, at least since I've met you, you have a lot of purpose behind who you help and why you help. Because you kind of mix the whole, I'm VC, yes, but I also want to empower younger people and people that are trying to start business. So how did you, I think the first one is ATO Ventures, and then you have something called Valley Startup. You want to care to explain what are those two and what's the difference? Sure.
There's a lot of underlying questions in there that you didn't ask specifically, but we can go back to them. But ATO Ventures, which stands for Against the Odds, is all about backing entrepreneurs at the very earliest stages. And we use a system called market validation testing, where we're basically going in right at the time a startup is ready to launch and testing to make sure all of their go-to-market assumptions are correct before we put a significant amount of capital in. So we put a small amount of capital in that pays for the market validation testing, which can sometimes be more expensive than an early stage company that can't afford, and then we test.
For people that don't know about venture capital, is that a thing that venture capital do?
Not usually.
So
not
it's
usually.
Really peculiar for you guys.
It's we haven't heard of anyone else doing it that way. So for your audience, it might make sense for us to step back and talk about what is venture capital,
Okay,
and why it is that therefore the way we do things is different. So I think one thing that I would like people to know is that just because you're called a venture capitalist, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily a capitalist or believe in capitalism. And that's something that it's different. The word capital is in there for a different reason. So if you are thinking about what does venture capitalist mean and where did that term come from? So venture comes from adventure, right? Yeah. So back in the late 40s, early 50s is when venture capitalism, as we know it, started to be developed. And they coined the term because it was you're backing adventures. Which means things that are exciting but unproven.
I see.
So a
you're
venture
kind of betting on something that you don't know that
is unproven. Okay. Yeah. So that's where it's an idea of betting on something unproven. And capital really just means money. So you're putting money behind something that's you're not sure about.
So interesting. So that's the difference. So technically, like for the audience, like normally you go to a bank, but the bank wants proof of things.
Right.
Versus VC that not necessarily the same type of proof, or maybe has certain requirements. Have you at least done these things? Yes? Okay. I think I can go with your crazy idea. Something like that? A conversation like that maybe is going to happen?
Well, and there's a range. So then now we know what general venture capitalism is. It's people who put money behind risky or new companies and ideas and businesses that haven't been proven yet. But then within that, there's a lot of different types of venture capitalists, right? And the ones that people know most about are the ones that are doing their job, which is to create money, right? So one thing that you have to remember when you're dealing with a venture capitalist is that they are hired to take a small amount of money and make it a bigger amount of money.
Yeah, the famous 310x, whatever.
Exactly, and that's simply their job. They're just like they have a company just like the business has a company, and their raw materials are money and their output is money, and then what they do in the middle is the process. And in this case, it's investing into other businesses and helping them grow. So we can talk about that because it's key in determining whether or not venture capital is a fit for you, and most of the time it's not. But within that, there are different people with different mindsets, and I'm included in that group. So if you think about, without getting too much into politics, I lean very much more toward socialism and impact. And so you end up with people who believe in supporting the community and believe in helping everyone succeed. And those are your community development venture capitalists and your impact investors. So there are people that are simply using venture capital as a tool for social good. And I fall more into that category.
It's okay. So because people use these words and they mean different things for different people. But in your case, you're just saying that we can make money and we can help everyone while making money. This kind of like.
Well, yes, for some people. For me, that's
not how the.
For me, it's literally a tool. So I see entrepreneurship based on, now you've heard my story. I see entrepreneurship as a way out. a way out of poverty, a way out of
I agree. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, a way out of government dependence, which you can argue is good or bad. It depends on the country that you live in. I think in the U.S. and Puerto Rico, it's challenging to try to depend on the government, especially now. And so I really believe that if you have these tools, it's kind of like if you can't beat them, then figure out how you can use the tools that are available to your advantage. So I see that there are all of these really great ideas and people that have what it takes to be an entrepreneur, but they don't have access to capital. They don't have a way to make it happen. So I look out and go, okay, well, what can I do? So I could do a nonprofit and donate money. I could do all of these different things. But when you need a certain amount of money to really hit a trajectory, it's usually a larger sum of capital. Okay. And the model that works is venture capital in those cases. So I was like, well, how can I use venture capital as a model to help make sure that everyone has an opportunity to succeed against the odds, especially when the odds are way against them.
Interesting. So I always tell people that there's a game. I always say there's a game, and it's either you play or you don't. You can cry that the game you don't like the game, but you know the game. So either if you don't have the power to change the game, and the game is chess, now either you play chess or you don't, right? And I think what you're telling me is that we can't change the board. It is what it is. So might as well learn how to play and teach people how to play. That's technically what I'm listening. And I think that's
a great analogy.
And I think it's the way to go, because you know there's things. Life is life, and there's things you can't change. Maybe I always tell people that I mentor, we can bitch about what like things that are not happening, and you wish were in a way, or you just do with what you got. And in business, your business deals with today, what's happening today. Your business is not dealing with something that doesn't exist that we wish.
Exactly.
And that's a lot of people be like, whoa, like, because people want their business to work in a place that doesn't exist.
Right.
But that's another.
And that's part of the market validation testing.
Correct. So going back to that market validation, like a lot of people that start business do not do this, but sometimes they don't even know this is important, right? So how does market validation, like, let's explain what it is and how this affects your core investment philosophy, because you're an investor, people might want to talk to you, they know a little bit how you work and why this is important, how you at least evaluate investment philosophy.
So people will talk about validating or verifying a market in different ways, and a lot of times it's pretty loose. They'll say, oh, well, I know my idea is validated because, for example, I'm selling shoes and lots of people buy shoes, therefore it's validated. But that validates that there is a market for shoes, not necessarily a market for your shoes, right? And then there's other ways of saying, well, I talk to a lot of people, and therefore, it's validated and it's verified. For us, it goes deeper. For us, a validated market means that people are pulling out their credit cards. They're actually paying for the product. And they're doing so in a way that you can surmise that there's a scalable, reachable way. So there's enough customers, or enough people rather, in the world that look like those initial customers that you can see, okay, this is scalable. And then do you have the means to reach them? Yes, you do. So for us, it all boils down to, are there actual paying customers in scalable, reachable markets? Now, the trick is we do that before you launch your company.
Then people normally launch a company to figure out if that's a thing.
Right.
So you're proposing that you should do it before.
Yes.
Okay. How would that go?
And there's the magic, because this is the story you always hear, and this is the loop that entrepreneurs get in. They're like, well, I need, other venture capitalists, not us because we go on before launch. They want us to have sales. They want us to have traction. But how do we get traction without selling? And how do we sell without having a product? And how do we build a product if we don't have capital? Right? So it's a loop, right? So what we want to do is we want to figure out, how in the world do we have a crystal ball? How can we project into the future and see whether or not this company is going to succeed, if it's going to sell, before we actually build the product? And you know a little how this goes because you went through our process.
I do.
But it's all about, okay, what's the cheapest, most effective experiments we can conduct that are going to give us some evidence that this product, if it were built, could be sold. And the the key there is that if it could be built, and this is where the challenge is, everyone wants to build at least the MVP and then go to market. But what we found is that most of these startups, if you look at the data, 70% of startups, even after they have seed funding, right? So 70% of seed funded startups, which is why people say 90% of startups overall, but 70% of seed funded startups go on to fail. And it's because they take...
It's a lower rate. It's a lower fail rate, so... Because they did something. But they still fail, even though they raised capital and built a product and supposedly went to market. But what happens is they raise capital on their idea of what they think is a good idea. I've asked a lot of people even. Because I want to sell pens, and I think pens are magical. Let's build an idea around that instead of what they don't question the object itself.
Well, there's all kinds of reasons that once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur, right? So I'm constantly thinking of brilliant ideas that I eventually kill, thankfully, but a lot of people don't kill them. They just run with them. Yeah. And what happens is you get very excited about it. You do some research, you ask some people, everyone says it's amazing and it's great, and then you raise some money behind it and the investor thinks it's great, and then you launch it and nobody buys it. Or not enough people buy it at a profitable rate, but then by then you've used all the capital to go on this one direction and you don't have enough money to pivot. But you have a failed company, it's harder to pivot, you can't raise more, and then that's why the companies end. So the idea is, if there is a statistic that says, 90 of your ideas are going to fail out of your 100, let's figure out which of your 10 are going to succeed now, right? So the idea is we're going to take this idea that you have and we're going to do as much testing on it as we can to see if it's one of the failed ones or one of the good ones before you actually jump down that path.
Interesting. So would you say that, compared to other VCs, why don't other people take this route more? Just because they're lazy or too much work?
Well, when we were first pitching the ideas, I was raising the fund, right? Because we have to raise our fund, just like you have to raise your capital to run your business. We have to raise our fund to run our business, which is supporting entrepreneurs. So before I can go and support entrepreneurs through this model, I have to raise money to run my business, which is supporting entrepreneurs through the model. So when I was pitching the idea to limited partners, which are people and institutions who invest into venture capital funds, I time and again heard from people, I've never seen this model. I've never heard this model. And so whether no one had thought of it, which is unlikely, or they just discovered it was too much work, I don't know. But I can tell you this, it is a ton of work. It is a ton of work. It's a lot of time. You're really working with entrepreneurs that haven't done it before usually. And so it takes a lot of time, and it's the most risky investment you can make because there's no track record. And so it's the most risky, takes the most time. So your risk benefit reward is a little lopsided. And so my guess is that's why we haven't seen a lot of people doing it.
So I don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg here, but so you have Valid Startup, that is the program to which all this that we just talked about kind of happens, right?
Yeah.
How did you decide on just building the Valid Startup program? Was it did you already have these thinking of how a VC was supposed to be, or did you start investing and then Valid Startup came to be? You know what I'm trying to ask here?
Yep.
Yeah.
So Valid Startup, for people who don't know, is an online program where it walks you through starting a business from idea all the way up to launch. And it gives super granular, step-by-step, do this, then do that, do this, then do that. So entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs can wake up in the morning, look at the next step, just go do that one thing, cross it off the list, and go do the next. And we get really granular. And we noticed that there are a lot of programs, education programs around business online, even great, startup schools and that type of thing. But most of them were telling you, kind of what to do, but not how to do it. So go figure out your customer acquisition costs. Well, how do I figure out a customer acquisition cost when I don't have any customers yet, right? So we walk you through how to do that and even give you the spreadsheet and say, put this number in this cell and put this number in this cell and divide this by this, and then this is what you get, and that's what it means, right? So it's just very, very step by step. So that's what it is. The way it came about was I found that a lot of times entrepreneurs would come to us for capital people and they would have skipped a very important step. Like they didn't know their customer acquisition cost, or they didn't do a competitive analysis, or they didn't talk to customers, didn't do customer discovery. So they've skipped a step. So I found myself repeatedly teaching how you do these things. So during the pandemic, I decided to write it all down. So I had, over 20 years worth of notes and things from being an advisor and an investor and an entrepreneur. And I kind of just took all of those notes and compiled them into a program.
So you just technically said you distilled your knowledge on the background, everything you've learned, and you just put it in a program where people can kind of like go through it. I did go through it. So I'm just talking like, introducing the information to you guys, but it's a very interesting program. I think it was, so I've been through other types of programs, and this one's self-paced, even though like they're with you and every step of the way. But it's very interesting because normally you have to like kind of wait, but here you can kind of go at your own speed, and then you have the team backing you up. So I think it was very interesting, very different. They gave you the information that you needed to execute each section, and everything was there. And if you have questions, you can just ask. So I think it was very amazing. I think like my next question now is, having all this experience and having all this knowledge, you came to our little island. And I just want to ask, like, I know you already made Puerto Rico your home, and she's been traveling, learning Spanish. There's a lot to talk about that.
Traveling around the island.
And it's been super fun watching you just, invest in getting the culture and being one in the island. Is super fun. Why the island? Why the island? And how does it feel to investing from here? That experience. Like, can you talk to me a little bit about that?
So there's two answers to this question.
And it's okay.
Spoiler alert, none of them have to do with taxes. But I could give you the business response, or I could give you the deeply personal Oprah Winfrey response.
We can get both. And then we decide.
I've never told anyone the latter because, frankly, it's just sort of occurred to me, honestly, very recently as this whole other layer of personal reason why I'm here. So where do you want to start?
Let's start with the business.
The facts of what.
Let's start with business, and then we get the Oprah Winfrey version.
If you make me cry, you're a really good podcast interviewer. Okay, so originally I had just sold my software company, and I happened to know someone that was here in the Parallel 18 program. For those who don't know, it's like the Y Combinator of the island. It was the first incubator.
Correct.
And they had their first generation. So this is back in early 2016, right? So over 10 years ago.
That's literally 1 year before Maria.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Maria hadn't happened yet. But there was this new incubator. I think we had one co-working space on the whole island, and or one that people knew about. And it was just very new, this sort of entrepreneurship scene. I knew nothing about Puerto Rico. In the United States, at least where I was, and I'm on kind of a more, a more forward-thinking school, right? That's how I learned Japanese. My high school was
Japanese?
That was my.
That's another.
That's
I'll
my
talk
language.
about that
yeah,
later.
That's my second language. So I started speaking Japanese when I was younger because our school taught it, right? So
Cool.
it was more advanced, but we never heard about Puerto Rico. Like, we knew that there was, you got the list of territories, but nothing was taught. I couldn't point to it on a map. Probably, as an adult I could, but we weren't. It wasn't that necessarily we were given any incorrect information. We were given no information.
Yeah. There was nothing.
Exactly. So when my friend, and I'm an adult now, but when my friend said, I'm in Puerto Rico going through this incubator, why don't you come down? Because I had just sold my company and I hadn't yet found a new position. I was thinking I would just join an existing venture capital firm. The whole reason I sold my company is because I was really enjoying advising startups, and I really love that super early stage. And so I was like, wait, I can do this on repeat. I don't have to do my own company. I can just help other people do it. And so I sold my software company in order to do investing full time. And I hadn't yet figured out, where I was going to go or what firm I wanted to join. And so I had this little bit of space. And a friend was here in Parallel 18 in Gen 1. And he's like, oh, why don't you just come down to the island? And I was like, oh, okay. And then immediately, as soon as I hung up the phone, I started being very anxious about it. No, because it was literally the first time in my life that I hadn't been working, right? I just sold my company, and I was like, and I had just gone to Croatia for a wedding, and I was going to go visit my grandma in Washington. And I felt like, who am I to be jumping around the world? Like, you need to get to work. And I felt very uncomfortable that I wasn't working. I'd worked my whole life. So I called him back. And I said, you said you were in this incubator thing. Do they have a demo day? and he said, well, yes, we do. And so he introduced me to the people who were running the program at the time. They did whatever type of background check they did. I don't know what they did, but they called me up and they said, you know what, why don't you just come down and work with the startups for a week? And I was like, okay, now it's a work trip, so I'm happy. So my first time in Puerto Rico, in fact, the first 3 times at least, I never stepped foot on the sand. Like I was in my hotel and at Parallel or at the Trust, giving talks and helping the startups and I just I was in my element. I just loved it. And the energy was just so different than in Silicon Valley. And the mindset was different. And people, without saying anything bad about Silicon Valley, the people here were, they were hungry and they were ready to work and inquisitive. And so I just kept coming back because I fed off of that amazing energy, because it was so reminiscent of me when I was hungry to get started, and still you're just once that way, always that way, probably. And so I just felt really at home in that environment, and then people were asking me to move. So that's the surface answer.
Hey, but that's a good. So I thought, I always ask myself, how'd you get here? And I kind of I always told Saul, I'm pretty sure she's been here since 2017, because that's at least I remember.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it was Parallel at some point, probably Parallel, because most of the time, in VCs and people that work with startups back at that time, Parallel was one of the few programs at all. I think Guayacán was also around, but Guayacán is more local here. Mm-hmm. But Parallel started working with people from the outside, etc. But so I know that you built with the ecosystem and whatnot, but you were very hands-on. You don't just here's the money, see ya. You have a mentorship, community leadership approach that I like, that I think more VCs should be this way, but that's just me. But and because I think that a lot of people, when we started looking for capital, one of the things that we were looking for is that yes, the money's there, but can it be more? Can it be mentorship? Can it be resources, network? Does it come with other perks? And I value more at this point that than the actual money at some point, because sometimes you need somebody to open doors. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think more VCs and people should be this way, in my opinion. So why mentorship? Why is it such a critical part of the success, at least in your philosophy? Let's start there. Why do you think it's so important?
Well, there's just a lot of data behind it. I mean, aside from it just being something I believe in and I appreciate, there's a lot of data behind the success of founders. It's something, we actually have it on our Valid Startup site. I think it's something 12 times more likely to succeed if you've got strong mentors, right? So there's that. And I think that goes back to when you're looking at underserved areas, they don't necessarily have access to a lot of the mentors that people might have in different environments. And so part of it is that, but I never really consciously thought about that until later. It was more of just what I'm passionate about, and I just really want to help and make sure people succeed. And the other thing is that, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, when you're going in super early, right? If you're going into a company where they need that mentorship, it means that they really need the mentorship, right? It means, and what I mean by that is, if they don't have the experience and the company is not, already creating a ton of revenue and they have a big team or whatever, then they're at the beginning edges of that learning curve. And so there's a lot of guide rails that need to be provided and experience. And working with me, it's it's a combination of pushing you and also saying it's gonna be okay.
And it's needed, because sometimes people assume, he's a founder, he has no boss. So, and sometimes that feeling of not having somebody to give you a nudge, it helps, because sometimes so many things happen and we're all human, but some people are more self-driven and move, but it's always good to have that nudge, like, hey, like sometimes you think you're going forward, but it's like, wee. And it's like, whoa, this way, Right. And it happens because sometimes when you're in the zone, so many things happening, you need somebody up from the outside to give you perspective. Because sometimes we get tunnel vision, and that happens.
Yes.
So I think having this mentorship is the most important thing. How do you decide, like, you don't have to tell me all your secrets, but how do you decide? Because I know, like, you participate in a lot of boards and do mentorship with different people. How do you evaluate? How do you decide, like, it's worth? Because you don't just mentor people that you give money to. You also mentor people outside. So she is not just a VC. She's actually mentoring and in the community people. So how do you evaluate? How do you go be like, oh, this group is cool, and woo, I just go in, and how do you go by that?
Well, it always starts with them inviting me.
Okay.
Or asking me to do something. So I get involved with different organizations on the island, and you want controversy?
You don't have to say names.
I won't say names, but I'll say this. I'll just say a fact. And people can read into it what they want. I've only ever joined boards of organizations that are run by Boricua.
Okay.
I don't join organizations and nonprofits and businesses that are started by people
not from Ireland.
Yes.
Okay.
I will just leave it at that.
Okay.
And
is there a reason? Any specific reason? And we don't have to go.
The reason I'm pausing is not because I'm trying to form an answer. It's more of a feeling.
Okay.
And how do I describe it? It's more of, I'm here, and I'll give some more color to this. I'm here to contribute to this community.
I see. I get you.
And so I want to contribute to this community. And I think that it's not to say anything bad about organizations that are started by others, and without going into layers of what's going on the island politically and with taxes and all of that stuff, I just stay away from that.
Okay.
Because I don't necessarily agree with it.
I understand.
So rather than argue against it or fight one way or the other, I just don't participate.
I get it.
And so I think that that's part of it. And I'll preface this by saying, I'll go back and say, I have always been this way. It's not just Puerto Rico. I get involved in the community where I live because I feel like it is a duty to...
For the people, if you want to stay there and live there.
If you're sucking the air and taking benefits from a community, you ought to be giving back. Okay. And so when I lived in Spokane, right, is where I grew up, I wasn't just a student and working. I was on the student city council. So I was on the city council. I played in the city orchestra. I was the ambassador to Japan when I was 16 for our state. And so I was involved in the community there. I taught Bible school, right? So I did that in Spokane. When I got to Oakland, I lived in Oakland while I was going to school at UC Berkeley. I was involved with student leadership programs while I was at UC Berkeley. I was teaching service learning, right, as a class just to graduate students. Even though I was an undergrad, I was able to teach grad students about service learning, and we did community projects. So this has been a core of who I am. So now I'm in Puerto Rico, and yes, I love Puerto Rico as it is, but it's also because this is where I live. And if I've chosen this as my home, then this is where I ought to be giving back. And so I do the most I possibly can to support the people in the community. So that's why. No.
I get it. So I think the same way. Wherever I live, I used to study at Maya West on the other side of the island. And by the time, all the time I was there, I always participated in local events, community events, like helping the community there. And if sometimes I'm in New York, I'll probably do the same thing. And wherever I live, I think people have a duty, because people always talk about rights, and it pisses me off because people talk about rights, but they forget the responsibilities that come with them.
Right.
We get the rights, but we get responsibility of giving back and helping others be able to have the same, Right. But how?
So let me just add one thing before you change topics. So I just want to be clear. That's not to say that I don't help other communities. Right? I'm still very active. It's like for the UC Berkeley community, and I do talks there, and we invest around the world. It's more of, because you were asking, how do I decide where to spend my time?
No. I get you. So I get you. It's not that you don't get involved with other people like that.
Yeah, I'm happy to help anyone.
But if something is here,
what board to be on, that kind of thing, because it takes a significant amount of time. And so if I can only do 3, and I'm invited to 10. The 3 are going to be ones that don't have as much access to people with my experience.
I get you. No, I understand. I'm pretty sure whoever gets offended is a little kid, just saying. But point being...
He said it, not me.
So in terms of your experience in the island and what you've experienced and what you've learned, you can say however you want. What are the things that you've learned and things you recommend us as maybe entrepreneurs or new people that are starting business, things that maybe, let's say top 3 things that they should be doing today, like let's say 2025, right? Based on how things are going, based on your experience in the island as Puerto Rican, and maybe anyone else, but let's say in the island for now, do you recommend specific things? What should we be taking in consideration when starting a business?
At what stage?
Let's say people that are starting a business just like from scratch. They're not rich. They don't have the capital. They're just starting. And they're probably building a business that's going to be either a lifestyle business or it's going to be maybe a micro business that gets up to like maybe 200 a year, maybe tops. Then, the average Joe.
That's a sustainable business.
Yeah, that's the people that normally we at Puny mentor and help out. Like, what do you recommend to those type of people? Because I know they're probably seeing like, I'm never gonna talk to her to ask for money. I'm like, you'll be surprised, but you can get her mentorship maybe at some point. But what do you recommend them? What's your recommendation towards them?
Well, and it's interesting, and this could go right back into the question about ATO Prime and what is it and how is it different from venture capital, because it's really geared toward these smaller businesses. So if you're just thinking about starting a business versus if you've already, taken the leap and quit your day job or using it as your day job because you were in between roles or whatever, it's different. But I think the main thing, if you don't have an idea yet but you want to start a business, it's obviously thinking about the skills that you have and what you can offer. But then the main thing is what problem can you solve? And I think that this is the challenge for those of us who have a million brilliant ideas a minute, is making sure that our brilliant idea is really solving a problem for someone else. And this goes back to value creation. So if you're building a business, even a nonprofit, you're creating value in exchange for someone's hard-earned dollars.
Of course.
And so what value are you creating? And yes, it's possible to just create something that's entertaining or enjoyable, but even that is solving some type of problem. You're solving boredom, or you're solving, a sweet tooth, right? So it's really, what problem is it that you're solving? And I think that that's the thing. You hear people understand it because it's said over and over and over again every time you talk to anyone related to business and entrepreneurship. What problem are you solving? But no one really internalizes it, right? And if you really ask someone, hey, I'm going to start this t-shirt business, and you're like, okay, what problem does it solve? It may not. So is that the best business idea? Well, maybe not just t-shirts, but maybe you sell something where people can customize it, right? So you're solving a problem because people maybe, I don't know, you have to test it, want to have some individual style, or they want to advertise their business, right? So then you create an opportunity for them to advertise their business. So it's really about what need are you solving? And then the next thing is that need really being unmet right now? Can you do it in a way that's better, cheaper, that type of thing? So that's where I would say everything starts.
For people, small business owners and people that are just starting and maybe they launched because, that's what we do. We just go. Is there a point, like, would you say, like, because it's interesting because normally your framework is how can I quickly prove that this works or doesn't work so I can move to the next thing, right? Mm-hmm. And people normally are backwards. Is that, how do I keep going until it works? Right? Am I wrong?
No, you're right. I always say I'm going to help you kill your idea.
To be fair, that is literally one of the first lines in the Valid Startup. I remember. I just saw. So look at this.
It sounds really negative, right? And if that scares you, that means you're too committed to the idea and
not to the problem,
not to the purpose.
Yeah.
And that goes back to your introduction. So when you're starting a business, you've really got to think about why. Why am I doing this? Is it because, and there's no wrong answer, but it's really important for you to understand why. What is your purpose for starting this business? Is it to put food on the table? Is it to have more freedom? Is it to be able to experiment? Is it, no one's willing to hire me, so I have to do something myself. Like, whatever it is, why are you starting this business? And so you've really got to think about when you get going, is this going to serve my purpose? And the way you can quantify that is, okay, let's say I have to earn a certain amount of money per month to survive or to take care of my family. One of your stop triggers is got to be that this is not going to generate enough money to meet my purpose. Yes. It's not going to generate the capital I need to fulfill the whole reason why I'm starting a business in the first place. And I think we get excited about things as entrepreneurs because we're builders and we're creators and we start going and there's a little bit of traction and a few people are buying it. So it must be good. And you just keep going, you keep going long after it should have been killed, right? So that's really what we mean by that is we want you, if it's gonna fail, we wanna find out as quickly as possible that it's going to fail. It goes back to the crystal ball that we were talking about at the beginning. Like if you could see into the future, this particular business is either going to succeed or it's going to fail, right? We know that for a fact. What level, we don't know. But let's just say we know that there is a future and it will have succeeded and it will not. So can you look to the future and decide and see, oh, it's failed or it isn't? No. So what's the next best thing? Okay, let's just try to test the heck out of it really fast and kill it. If it's not going to work, we want to know now. So
yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. And I think like being in love with the purpose helps you be able to get there, right? Because if you're in love with the solution, then you can't think that way because then it's like you're killing my inspiration, right? Like, so it's very interesting. And when I realized that. As I was getting into this, I'm like, I know why I'm here. So I just want to build something that solves this. If this is not doing it, next. And it's very empowering because now everything I do, no matter if it's consulting, if it's service, if it's building a product, if it's not aligned with my purpose and it's not added to my purpose, I just say no. And now when I do other things, because a lot of people be like, oh, I do this product and my purpose is the product. No, because I've talked with friends that feel trapped when they build a product and say, I can't do anything else. I'm like, no, why are you doing this? And they tell me X purpose. And I'm like, is the consulting adding to that purpose? Yes. Is the product added to that? Yes. So why can't you do them both? Because they're adding to it. So if you don't have enough time, okay, that's something you can kind of work around. But if it's something, one of these is not added to the purpose, then eliminate it. Yeah. But now I don't feel that I'm wasting. I feel that it's going everywhere or I want it to go. So it's like, it's very empowering when you discover your purpose, you know it, and it's just everything makes it easier to say no, especially to things. Yeah. So now we're switching to something that I do quick fire round. It's just questions to people get to know some things about you. So first of all, what's one book that shaped your mindset as an entrepreneur or an investor that you could recommend other people to read?
I hate book questions because I listen to so many, and as soon as you ask me for a title or an author, I go blank. It happens every single time.
It can be be like a course also. It doesn't have to be a book. Something that you be like you recommend people to do or like listen to. It's like, if you're here, like, I recommend
Can I pull up my audio
yeah,
file?
of course.
No,
it's like,
I'm
she's
trying to
looking
think
into the phone. Don't worry, people. Give me a second here.
Oh my god! No, this is. We should go on to a different question. I could look up my playlist.
While you're thinking that, the other one is.
Oh my god, this is interesting. The first book that I haven't finished yet.
Yeah?
There's two here that are good for entrepreneurs. One is Thinking Bigger.
Okay.
So we can talk about that. The next book these are the last three books that I read and or listened to. I always download the audiobook and the digital, because there are times when I can actually read it fast, and there are other times when I can't read, so I just listen to it. The 5 Types of Wealth. Okay. This is an important one. And then the last one is Do the New You.
Interesting.
And that one is written by a pastor. So, or
religious person.
Okay, so you want to talk about those?
Yeah. What's up?
This is supposed to be quick fire.
But let's do it.
Okay, I'll give you the one-line synopsis of
at least one of them.
Okay, the one that I think that is interesting for entrepreneurs, the 5 Types of Wealth. So it talks about building wealth, right? The typical money wealth, but then it also talks about in your life you've got social wealth, physical health, mental health,
yes,
and relationship health.
Okay,
right. So I'm missing one, I think.
So I'm assuming how you build your wealth around those concepts.
Exactly. And so it's basically telling you that
some people can be rich, maybe not economically, but they can be socially, in relationships, health, and body.
And the goal is to have all the types of wealth.
Interesting. So true wealthy people have them all.
I don't know about that. I would say that it's just saying that there are other things to value besides money, and you should be focusing on all areas of your life.
I agree. I truly agree. What's one daily habit you never skip?
Oh, well, hygiene, of course. That's the first thing. Okay, but beyond the obvious, making my bed, which you'll hear. I think a lot of people say that, but I never miss making my bed.
I do not make my bed. Is there a reason?
Well, there's practical reasons, and then there's reasons that other people do it, right? So the reason I do it is, one, my grandmother said something to me once, and it stuck with me, and I think she's so right. We were making her bed, and she said, even if the rest of the room is messy, somehow when you make the bed, it just feels cleaner.
Okay.
And so that always stuck with me, and it's true. Like, you could have the laundry sitting there and everything else, but if the bed is nice with the pillows there, it just feels like the room is so much nicer. And for me, having clutter around is, we could go personal again. It's it causes stress. I don't like things to be messy because of stress. And this a little bit goes back to, and I'm over this quite a bit, but it used to cause almost PTSD because my mom was a hoarder.
Interesting.
And
I can relate.
So the house was never neat. The house was always very, very messy and full of stuff. Every nook and cranny and shelf had stuff, and they were just garbage basically on the floor and things. And so my room was always very neat, and it was my one little haven. And so now, making my bed is important because it gives me some sense of mental peace. Your mom's a neat freak and you're the hoarder.
Loves. So that my house, I grew up in a house that everything's white because she wanted to know that it was dirty. Because if it's any other color, it's hard to say. So in my room was a mess. My mom always be mad. Hi, Mom. So she was really mad about it. But I think I kind of grew not liking the messy, the cleanliness. It's just that I'm like, oh, so much cleaning. I just don't want to do it.
You're the opposite. It causes you stress.
But you know that the whole bed thing, everybody told me, if you do it, it's better for you. And I don't know where I read that if you leave the bed, open, the sun dries the dead skin and the agars and whatever.
Oh, that's just terrible. I don't think that happens. But you know what does happen? Bugs. Spiders. Where I grew up, there are a lot of spiders, right? I don't see them here as much, although there are some. We'd have spiders all the time. And I was like, you want a spider? Because they fall down from the ceiling, and you don't want that in your bed.
Okay. So what advice would you give your 19-year-old self?
Oh, goodness. This is advice I'd give my yesterday self
Okay.
as well, because I still haven't learned it yet. I'm still learning it. And if I could come back as a new person and know this from day one, I think the world would be a better place. I mean, or for me, I would experience the world better in a better way, I would think. And that is not caring so much about what other people think. And I mean that in the way of not needing to seek their validation and their approval and all of that, because I think I've spent a lot of my life, including, like I said, up to this moment, not necessarily literally, but I'm still learning layers of it, where things that shouldn't even enter your mind as a consideration do. And while I'm good now, or better at not letting that take over, I think when I was younger, I was so afraid of saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, acting the wrong way, and not being just absolutely as perfect in the eyes of whomever I was working with or dealing with at the time, that it was hard for me to, share and learn about my own true self.
So we're pretty close to wrapping up. In terms of legacy, what do you hope to leave in the startup ecosystem? At least, like, do you have like anything that you want to happen, or, leave something behind? Like, what type of long-term impact are you like looking for? So
this is interesting. The word legacy almost grates on my ears.
Okay.
Because I've never thought of it that way. I don't think of leaving behind anything. And yet this is the first time where I've heard that question or have it part of a conversation where it didn't just, cause me to cringe. Cringe is a good word. And that's because I think it's less about leaving leaving a legacy, and instead being an example while I'm here. So whether anyone remembers me on the day I die or not, that's not important to me. I don't need to leave a legacy. But what I hope to do while I'm here and alive is to provide a good example of someone who's striving to do the right thing and help as many people as possible, and be happy along the way, and just roll with the punches and stay positive, and all of those good things that we come here to do.
That's amazing. So where can our audience find you, talk to you, or learn more about ATO Ventures, or just, look up you and talk to you?
So my personal my personal Instagram is the place where I'm the most active, and it's just hop.vc.
We'll put it in the bio.
On venture capital on Instagram. So that's the only social media that I'm really active on is Instagram. And so that's probably the best way to connect.
If people want to talk to you, or probably get mentorship from you or somehow, are you available? Can they just talk to you, or?
So the best way is to either DM me or send a message to hello@atoventures.com.
Yeah.
And get in touch that way, and it just depends on what it is that they want to talk about. But I'm happy to.
Pay a coffee. Just invite her for a coffee.
I'm easy to get in touch with. It's a small island. Like, it's not hard to find me.
Well, Jennifer, thank you for sharing your journey. Thank you for being here. Your insights and your purpose with us. I hope you people of all understand this hard. It's not impossible, and you got this, okay? So we're going to keep bringing more people like Jennifer that have been in the trenches and have done successful things. Please subscribe and share with a friend if you think her story and any of the other stories that we keep sharing, change their lives. So thank you, Jennifer. Until next time, and maybe we can get you to talk about other things, or not just
I would
VC.
love it.
Thank you guys. Until next time.